Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for San Jose Public Library's Supporting Children virtual program. My name is Gina. I'm a librarian at the Evergreen branch of San Jose Public Library. And with me tonight is Lisa from our Early Education Department.
Hi, everyone.
And we are so excited to have with us Jose from the Alum Rock Counseling Center. He's going to be giving tonight's presentation. So I'm going to hand it over to him. Thanks, Jose.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I able to share my screen? Yes, I am. Okay. So let me go ahead and share this and make it big for everyone. All right. So once again, let me introduce myself. My name is Jose Raya from Alum Rock Counseling Center, specifically with the Substance Use Prevention Services. One of the things that we like to do is, share information, the right information on, different substances such as nicotine, alcohol, marijuana, and, the harder stuff like cocaine, heroin, and things like that as well. But today, what I will be focusing on is sharing information on nicotine, okay? A little bit more specific, sharing information on vaping, okay? Vaping is something that we see a lot more common now for all of the wrong reasons, of course. Sometimes getting in the hands of students as well, right? We know that is, illegal and also very harmful for the body, right? And the brain. So that is why, I come out and do these types of workshops to share some of this information. Because it is recorded, I did have some questions throughout the presentation that you can just pause and, kind of quiz yourself a little bit if you feel comfortable. But let's go ahead and get started. So this is what our agenda looks like. I will cover the vaping, health, and society, what we need to know, what others need to know, and the tools to protect ourselves will also be shared. Disclaimer really quick. Let me move this over. Disclaimer really quick. Our goal through this presentation is to spread awareness and empower youth, parents, and staff with information on substances that are readily available in the community. Through this information, our audience can be made aware of the signs that they should look out for to know if their youth are using, as well as learn tips on what they can do to help. So, a lot of great information here. And, with that being said, I will be showing different products from different companies. That's not Alum Rock Counseling Center promoting for those products. It's just simply, for information purposes. Okay, so this is the first question. So if you want to pause it here and kind of quiz yourself, maybe jot some things down. But when you hear the word addiction, what things come to mind? So go ahead and pause it right now if you would like to quiz yourself, and see kind of where you are with that. But when you hear the word addiction, what things come to mind? All right, so something else that I wanted to show you all, or, kind of just see where we are with this. And again, you can pause it and kind of quiz yourself. But when with this activity, I want you to think of the things that I will be showing you on the screen. If it's a want, if it's a need, or if it's an addiction. Okay, 3 different things. But the first one is water. So what do we think about water? Is water a want? Is water a need? Or is water an addiction? And if I feel like, and this is just my opinion, but I feel like water for the most part, I always get need. Water is a need because we needed to hydrate ourselves. We needed to live, right? If we don't have water, we start feeling like that mental fog. We start feeling kind of sluggish, kind of just dehydrated, right? So water is definitely a need. What about coffee? What do you think about coffee? Is coffee a want? Is coffee a need? Or is coffee an addiction? So if you think, and I get a little bit of all 3, honestly, but I feel like coffee can be one of those things that can simply start as a want, then turn into an addiction, right? Because of the caffeine, right? that is one of the trickier ones. I feel like coffee, again, just my opinion, is one of those things that for me, I never really cared for coffee, and I just started getting like the smell of it, and it smelled really good. I tried it, and you know, now I feel like if I don't have my coffee in the morning, I don't feel like myself, right? So that's kind of where we are going with this, how something can just start as a simple want, and then it can turn into an addiction. And then we have the phone, which we will not cover. We will go over the main topic, I guess, for today is vaping, right? Vaping, e-cigarettes, and a bunch of other names that I will cover. But when you think of vaping, do you think vaping is a want? Do you think vaping is a need? Or do you think vaping is an addiction? Go ahead and, you know, write this down, see what you think about these here. Okay, so really quick, definition of a want is a state or condition of not having any or enough of something that is desired, right? Something you just desire, something you just want. So that's a want. Something, or definition of a need, is something that a person must have in order to live or succeed or be happy. For example, the water. The water is a need. If we don't have water, we all know what happens, right? We become really dehydrated. So we cannot live without water. That is a need. When it comes to addiction, addiction is a long-term disease where an individual has an overwhelming desire to find and use drugs, even though there are dangerous consequences. Addiction is a disease because it can result in long-term changes in the brain structure, function, and behaviors caused by drug use. So when we talk about drug addiction in general, right? Whenever somebody is addicted to whatever drug it is, alcohol, marijuana, nicotine, which is vaping, or any other drug, the consequences, they just throw those out, right? They throw them out the window, they throw them out the door, however you want to look at it. And those consequences, you know, being things like losing a job, right? For students, maybe losing a scholarship, being kicked off of a team. Those are some of the consequences. For somebody who is an adult and has a family, the consequences that they may face, things like losing family, right? Again, losing a job, losing your career, things like that, right? So whenever somebody is addicted to a substance, a drug, a lot of those consequences, they just throw them out, right? Because it just takes over, that addiction just takes over the brain. So, you know, that is what addiction is in a nutshell. When we talk about vaping, again, you can pause the video here and go ahead and quiz yourself if you'd like. But when it comes to vaping, what do we know? So what do you know? What have you heard? What have you seen? Maybe you've experienced it, right? But where are we with that right there? You can go ahead and pause it right now and quiz yourself, and then, you know, check back after I finish the workshop and kind of see where you were at with the information. Okay, so now we'll cover really quick the kind of like the history of e-cigarettes or vapes. So they started around 2007. So it was, you know, a couple years back, but not too long ago. And I remember there used to be commercials on the new e-cigarettes that were supposed to help people like kind of get off of regular cigarettes, right? That's how they advertise them. They advertise them as like something fresh, something cool. And, you know, it started catching on, but there was not a lot of information or, you know, health effects surrounding the e-cigarettes yet. They started catching on and they moved over to the variations, which for the most part is just different colors, different flavors, different sizes and things like that. But those are the variations. Kept catching on, you know, kept trending, and they moved over to the vape pens. So the vape pens are still one of the more popular vapes or e-cigarette products, only because they are refillable, they are rechargeable. They're all very similar, but still very different. But vape pens are some of the more common e-cigarettes or vapes on the market. And it sounds, it may sound weird, but it's more popular with students, or with a lot of students, I should say. And a common theme or a common answer that I receive from the students themselves is they prefer the vape pens because they can hide them easily, right? Or they look just like a pen, right? So they don't get caught easily. So the students know that they're illegal, that they're not supposed to be using them, but they still find a way, to kind of get around that. So what I tell these students at least, and what I tell all the students is find out the right information before you make a decision like this, right? So this is great. This is a great starting point right here. If you've never looked into this stuff, if you've just heard from a cousin, a brother, sister, sometimes even parents, this is the right time to look into that. All right, so the next one is the mods. The mods are a lot bigger. I will talk about, I will compare the two in a bit, but the mods are just a lot bigger. And then we have the pod-based system. The pod-based system being very similar to like a USB flash drive, and I'll show you some examples right now. But pod-based systems are very popular as well, for all of the wrong reasons, of course. So the vape pens and the pod-based systems are the ones that we will focus on the most. Okay, so we have the pod-based system on the left and the huge mod on the right. Something that I get a lot is people think that the mods on the right are more dangerous, right? Because they're bigger. So they have to pack a bigger punch, right? They have to just be stronger. But in reality, the one on the left, for example, this one here is a Juul. That one is actually more dangerous than the mod. And that is because if you look up here, it says salt-based nicotine, and I know that just, again, sounds weird, but this is free-based nicotine. The difference between these two is because the ones on the left, the pod-based systems, because they're smaller, they have a smaller cartridge. Companies are trying to pack as much nicotine in these little packages, right? So they just concentrate more nicotine into them, and not a lot of people know this, right? Because they're small, they're not supposed to do much damage, but in reality, they're doing a lot of damage. And I'll show you an example in a bit. So when you look at them, just the numbers, 41.3 milligrams of nicotine in a Juul, so in a pod-based system, 1 to 25 milligrams of nicotine in a big mod, right? So kind of a big difference. And this is just the start of it. These pods are made not to be refilled, and these tanks are refillable. So how much is, how much is the percentage that they put on the labels? Because that's something that a lot of users don't really care to look into, right? That's something that a lot of users don't do the research on. They simply see the numbers that we see here on the screen: 2.5%, 0.8%, 5%. And to somebody who knows nothing about it, you think like 2.5% of nicotine, that can't be a lot. That's nothing, right? But that's what companies are doing to kind of confuse people, right? To reel them in, kind of like fishing. They throw they use a rod, and they're kind of just reeling in the fish. So that's exactly what these companies are doing. They want us to be confused in a way. 5% strength, 5% strength of what? How much is 5%? I will be covering the Juul, which is the one in the middle. the fix, which is this bottom left, and then the Sorin pod, which is the top left. So when it comes to the numbers, again, 41.3 milligrams means nothing right now. But think of it this way. 1 pack of cigarettes is 20 cigarettes is equal to 20 milligrams of nicotine, okay? So when you do the math, it's 1 milligram of nicotine per cigarette, okay? A joule, which is the one that I showed you just now, is equal to 41 cigarettes in nicotine, so 41 milligrams. And then the fix is equal to 75 cigarettes in nicotine. And then we have the Sorin pod, which is equal to 90 cigarettes in nicotine. So a lot of nicotine in these products that, you know, users don't really look into. And again, let me show you what they look like. So the Sorin, the fix, and the joule are the ones that I have right here. So the joule, this one here in the middle, is equal to 41, about 41 cigarettes in nicotine. The fix is equal to about 75. And then this little contraption here that looks like a mouse, that looks like a highlighter, that looks like whiteout, is equal to about 90 cigarettes in nicotine. So a lot of nicotine, and again, not a lot of people do their research when it comes to these products. Something else to keep in mind, all of these pods, all of these products do contain nicotine. I've had students come up to me and, you know, say like, oh, well, you know, my brother has this vape that doesn't have nicotine. It's just like watermelon, or it's just strawberry. But that's actually a myth. That's a lie. Some companies just don't label, they just don't label these products, right? They don't label them correctly. Something else to keep in mind is when you look at these three side by side, they look almost identical, right? But something to keep in mind is that one of these here contains marijuana oil, okay? It doesn't contain nicotine. And if you were to take a wild guess, which one would it be? Go ahead and pause it here and choose one. But if you said the one on the right, if you said the one on the right, that is correct. This one here, the Stizzy, is just one of the many companies that creates these products with marijuana oil. Okay, so for the younger crowds, even some of the older crowds that are using, it can get tricky, right? Because they look like a regular vape that just has nicotine, and I say just has nicotine like it's, you know, nothing. But when you compare, you know, to marijuana, the one with the marijuana oil can have, you know, side effects like hallucinating, you know, paranoia, things like that, high anxiety. So, you know, we don't want this to get into the hands of the students because the effects can be very negative, right? Okay, something else to keep in mind is this here. It is very difficult to tell, you know, what the product actually has, right? They all look very similar. These are all different companies, but for the most part, very similar design. And again, they look exactly or very similar to a school, you know, or to a USB flash drive, right? So again, it's something to keep in mind. This here is showing how the bottom companies, right, Newport, Marlboro, Camel, they have partnered up with Blue, Mark 10, Vibe, to name a few, and they've invested a lot of money into these companies, right? They give a lot of money to these companies in return for, you know, future money, I guess, or future, what is it, like percentage in what they make, right? Why do we think they are doing this? Obviously, they've seen, you know, the rise of e-cigarettes. So they know that's the new market right there. That's what's in. So let's invest now and, you know, get more money in the long run. So these older companies, older cigarette companies, definitely know where the money is. You know, and again, for all of the wrong reasons. The flavors, when we look at the flavors, there's a common theme, okay, for the most part. You see a lot of sweet stuff, a lot of sour stuff, a lot of stuff that kind of resembles, you know, food. This one right here, Pancake Man, chicken and waffles, you know, strawberries and things like that. And that's just the start, right? So this is what is out there. This is kind of, you know, and I'll say this is my opinion, but a lot of people know this already. Companies are doing this, you know, they're using this type of marketing to reel in our younger crowds, right? Companies are not going to say this to the public, but if you look at it, right, the way they're marketing it, it just seems a little bit tricky, a little bit like sketchy, a little bit sneaky. So, you know, again, it's something to keep in mind.
Jose, what
And
are
then,
those? What are they? Those flavor things. I mean, is it? They look like oils, like the chicken. What is it?
yeah, so it's and good question. This is what people refill their vapes with.
Oh,
So if you
okay.
notice at the beginning, they have like a little tank. Some are refillable. So the ones that are refillable, they use these types of flavors. Okay, they just come
Yeah.
with like a little I don't know what it's called, like a little droplet thing.
Yeah,
But
it's
that's
like an
how they
eyedropper. It's almost like an ink cartridge,
yeah.
but I guess it's for vapes. Okay, I just didn't know what it was.
Yep. Okay. No, no worries. No worries. Yeah. So just to give you a better idea of what these companies are doing, you have the ones with the red label under. Those are the e flavors, or you know, the refills that I just showed. This one here is from a company called Whips, or they named their flavor Whips. Very similar to the food product Ready Whip whipped cream. Very similar colors, very similar design, right? The names very similar. So again, uh, another company that kind of tries to resemble something that's already out there, something that's sweet, something that's sour, something that kids like, right? You have the e-liquid juice box. That's their name. It resembles treetop apple juice, right? So the one on the left is the e-liquid, the refillable e-liquid, and the one on the right is the food product, right? So again, very sneaky way to market to the youth. But of course, companies will not say this straight up. But that's exactly what's happening. On the left right here, you know, we have stuff that resembles these types of candies. And then another example is here, the vanilla e-liquid, very similar to, you know, golden Oreos or vanilla wafers. So very sneaky stuff. We have to be aware of this, aware of these tactics. Over, and you can barely see it, but over 15,000 flavors out in the market. That to me is crazy to think about. But you know, it is what it is. It's a lot of it is due to the fact that companies were not regulated. And what I mean by that is vaping companies that have these products and sell these products, when they began, they didn't have a label, right? It wouldn't have the label wouldn't have the ingredients. It wouldn't have the amount of nicotine that it had. No warning labels or things like that. So companies were getting away with this type of stuff, and now, you know, they're cracking down on that. A lot of companies are going out of business because they weren't doing things legally, right? So that number is high because of that. And again, very sneaky stuff, something to keep in mind. So what is the purpose of all of these flavors? Go ahead and, you know, you can pause the video and have a discussion or kind of think about this. But what is the purpose? I believe the purpose is, you know, like I said, to reel in more people, right? More flavors equals more, what is it? More customers, right? So that is definitely, yeah, it definitely makes people want to buy them. So again, very sneaky stuff. So something that I get very, or something that I get often, a comment that students make is, oh, but it's just like a water vapor, right? It's just like a cloud, and it goes into, the air, and it disappears and nothing happens. But it's not a water vapor. It's actually considered an aerosol. And if you don't know what an aerosol is very similar to, think of like a hairspray. Think of a Febreze, right? Think of, what is it? The body spray deodorant, things like that. Whatever that lands on, it sticks to that. So it's not actually just a water vapor. It's actually, an aerosol. And I'll give you an example of how an aerosol works, with my great design here. Whenever somebody uses, right, let's assume, or let's think about it this way. If somebody uses in their living room and they're just using it, and then whatever that aerosol lands on, let's say the couch, the floor, whatever lands on the TV remote, it sticks to that, right? So then, our siblings get on the couch, our pets get on the couch, grandparents, things like that. It can also be consumed through third-hand smoke. And third-hand smoke is pretty much, consuming it through stuff that you touch, wherever it lands on, and things like that. So something else to keep in mind. And I tell this to the youth and adults as well. But whenever somebody is not only vaping, but smoking as well, if we can avoid like just the general area that they are in, let's do ourselves a favor and do that. I know sometimes it can get tricky with like parents smoking, or, aunts, uncles, and things like that, family members smoking around us. And, we feel like we can't really tell them like, hey, can you put it out? Honestly, you have, all the rights in the world to tell them. If they choose not to respect that, then we can take the next step and, step away. But I do recommend, stepping away from any of that general area wherever somebody is smoking or vaping. It'll help in the long run. This here is a list of the different chemicals that have been found in that aerosol, right? That cloud that comes out. You see things like iron, titanium, lead, silver, nickel, copper, a lot of metals, right? So when you think about it, again, you can pause it here. And why do we see a lot of these metals in the products? Why do you think we see a lot of these metals? I will give you an example here. This is one of the mods, so the bigger vapes. All they did here was they took off the cap where technically somebody puts their mouth on. There is no filter. So all of this that you see in the middle, it all heats up. If you look closely, you see 4 little screws and a coil that's wrapped around. That is what heats up the e-juice that is sprayed on there. And that's technically what makes the cloud. So not only are you, or not you specifically, but not only are people inhaling a bunch of different chemicals that we are not aware of, it's also the different metals, the different plastics and things like that that are also burning and melting, over time. All the corrosion and things like that, it can also affect our health. So that's definitely something that we have to be aware of, right? No filter and things like that. And this is all consumed by your mouth. It's not through the nose. Maybe people have tried it before, but neither is recommended, at least by me. I don't recommend either. But yeah, that's definitely what's going on. And let me move this over here. Okay, so these are some of the things that have been found, some of the chemicals that have been found in the E-Cig, Aerosol. The first one of the main chemicals used is propylene glycol, which is very similar to antifreeze. Antifreeze is what people use for their car radiators so that they don't overheat. Acetone, which if you've ever been around acetone, smells really strong. It's nail polish remover. There has been traces of acetone. Traces of acetone have been found in these products. Ethylbenzene, which is for paints and pesticides, so like to kill bugs. Formaldehyde, which is used for embalming, so to preserve like dead skin tissue. Nicotine, which is that brain poison, as I like to call it. And then rubidium, which is used in fireworks. So with that being said, I am not going to tell you that every time somebody takes, inhales or takes a hit from their vape, they are inhaling a lot of this. But even if it's like 0.005 of this stuff here combined, over time it adds up. Over time, people are using their vapes more and more. So, over time, our health is going to deteriorate. It's going to get worse. So it's something that I'm not willing to, risk my health for this. But a lot of users, a lot of people do put their health at risk whenever they do pick up a vape and try it. So another discussion, you can pause it here and answer this, but knowing what we do about e-cigarettes and considering all the things we don't know about e-cigarettes, why do teens choose to use e-cigarettes or vapes? So knowing what we know and knowing what we don't know, why do people still choose to use? You can pause it here and answer and see where you are with that. But if you think about it, and I've done a lot of these discussions with groups of teens, and they all pretty much, or not all of them, but for the most part, they say to fit in, to try and be cool. They mentioned that siblings are using. Sometimes, rarely, they mention that like parents are using as well, so like that influence as well. So a lot of different factors as to why people start using, even though they don't know what's in these products. But hopefully after this, you go away with some knowledge surrounding vapes and some of the health effects that we need to know. I feel like we all need to know this stuff. The body on nicotine. So here are four of the organs that are affected the most. So the first one, being our brain. It doesn't matter what age, but I'll tell you this, the younger crowds, if you are, let's say at the age of 15, you are more likely to become addicted of nicotine the earlier you start, okay? Somebody older can still become addicted, but the chances of a teen becoming addicted are, I believe it's like 1 out of 6 teens who use will become addicted. So that's just like a rough estimate, but it's definitely out there. Nicotine definitely takes over the way our brain functions and the way it works. So it's something that we don't take lightly, at least, or we shouldn't take it lightly. The heart is also affected. Heart beats faster due to like that fight or flight response. So it just beats harder, beats faster than it should. Over time, our heart's gonna need a break, and that's why like smoking can lead to heart attacks. That's one of the reasons, because we've been smoking, but people have been smoking so much that their heart is just like beating faster and harder than it should. It's gonna need a break, right? So that happens as well, and that can be another reason why you get or you see people having anxiety when they don't have their fix, which is nicotine, or when they do, right? So it can go both ways, but that's definitely affected. And then one of the main things affected is our lungs, right? Our lungs is what we use to breathe. It's like our filter, so those are also affected. And I will show you one of the main main effects that is happening with our lungs. And then increased acid reflux, that's mainly because of all the chemicals, all the different flavors. You get that as well. So as I mentioned, something that's happening with a lot of users is called popcorn lungs, right? So if you look on the, let me put this down. If you look on the left here, this is a normal airway, the one on the left, and let me circle this actually so we are on the same page. But this is a normal airway here, perfectly normal, breathing perfectly fine. Over time, you know, because of all of the chemicals, one chemical specifically, which is called diacetyl, and we have it up here on the top left, but diacetyl was causing that popcorn lung, right? This is early signs of popcorn lungs. You know, you get stuff like inflammation, and you get things like early scarring. Okay, so our airways just kind of closes in a little bit more. And then you have late signs, you know, or permanent signs of popcorn lungs is things like permanent scarring. So permanent inflammation, you know, our airways just become really small. So it's really tough to breathe. And you've had teens, you know, as early as like 18, 19, ending up, you know, in the emergency room. And I know it sounds sad, it sounds crazy, but you know, we have had cases of that. So it's something that, of course, is not really out there. It's not really known, but it's definitely happening. Who's the target audience? So we covered that a little bit. Pretty much, you know, by the ads that they used to use, you see stuff like, you know, younger people, younger crowds. This one in particular, you know, using like a Letterman jacket. So, you know, just, I don't know, just these companies were using younger looking people. And again, they won't say straight out, you know, we were targeting the youth, we were targeting the younger crowds. But, you know, we feel like they really are, right? Like they really did that. And you no longer see ads like this, right? You no longer see ads like this because they have been cracking down a little bit on companies. They have been, you know, they have more rules. Let's put it that way. They have more rules for what they can and can't do to advertise. You see stuff on social media as well. People who have a lot of followers on social media, they get paid to simply, you know, hold up a certain vape, you know, for a certain company or a certain product, right? They may not use, but because they have it, you know, like in their background, maybe they have it in their hand and they do a photo shoot, they get paid for that. So because they can't use commercials, they can't advertise that way, they advertise through social media. So it's something to be aware of, you know, as youth and then as a parent as well. And then this is just, you know, a little extra from me. I feel like this is really how, you know, the owners of these companies or the creators of these products really think. Of course, you know, it's just it's made up. But this one right here says, with candy flavors, colors, and designs, so cool it's lit, not like cigarettes at all except for the nicotine. You know, it's, and then the kids just like suffering. I really believe, you know, some companies will be doing some sneaky things like this. You know, so we have to be aware of this stuff. We have to be aware of this information that I'm sharing, and you can also share this stuff, you know, with others as well. With that being said, you know, a lot of negative effects. As of February 18th of last year, a total of 2,800, almost 3,000 cases of people ending up or going to the hospital because they can't really breathe, right? Because they need they need that extra help. So that may seem like a small number, but even if it's like one, I feel like that's more than we need. You have 68 deaths as of the same date last year. And the deaths, I'll tell you this, the deaths are from products that are not, they're not regulated, products that are being made, and in people's homes, in people's kitchens, in people's garages. And again, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds silly, but people really do this. I had a student at a certain high school who bought a product, right, from a friend, a so-called friend, and it ended up just being like maple syrup or something. So they refilled it, on their own. And maybe it was just like a joke, he definitely didn't laugh. But let's say somebody was trying to harm somebody else and, put something harmful in these products, and then went back and sold it, to another youth. So that's where the deaths come from. People doing stuff like this out of their home, right? So it's, again, something to keep in mind as well. Why are youth vaping? I covered all of these here. So the flavors we talked about, so many flavors out there. Changing social norms. The youth believe that it's okay to vape because, again, they don't have this information. So it's important for us to get this information out. The life stressors. Again, I've had youth come up to me and say that they've used, for certain things, for anxiety, for depression. These are their reasons, right? We tell them, find your natural high, find ways that naturally make you feel good. That isn't drugs, right? So that's definitely there. Perceived reduced risk. The risk of these products, it's you don't see them really like on billboards and things like that yet. But it's definitely out there, right? We don't want to hear, 5, 10, 15 years from now, that these products were actually super dangerous, which they are. But we don't want to find out down the line. We want it to, kind of end now, if possible, or slow it at least. The marketing, show some examples of marketing. And then lack of understanding of addiction. People don't know they are actually getting addicted to these products. But with the large amounts of nicotine that I showed you in the beginning, it's just a matter of time before their brain just kind of, that's all they're thinking about, right? That nicotine, because the amounts of nicotine in these products. Okay, so questions, comments, and concerns. If you do have questions, comments, and concerns, I know this is a recording, but you can always reach out and, contact me, or you can contact the library and, they can reach out to me as well. But, don't be shy, reach out, share this information with, as many people as you can. But, it's important stuff to know. And yeah, other than that, thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much, Jose. I'm going to end the recording, but we did have a couple of participants. So once the recording has stopped, I want to give them a chance if they do have any questions or comments. But again, thank you so much for joining, and thank you to everyone who's watching this.